headshot, nigga. Winner, chicken dinner, I did it. Shot him in the head.
Bottom with the lights off at night. Park.
Drones flew over the house, and the alarm was constantly triggered when they were away. After installing surveillance cameras, Alan captured video of people on the property and images of them inside their home.
Everything disappearing. The alarm system, the antenna clip.
Alan called the cops and kept every single police report, but they never caught anyone.
Why did you stay so long? That's a good question.
I said to back it up, but the daughter, she loved being here. She wanted to graduate, so I said, let's try to stick it out. Let's try.
But 6 years after they moved in, their home was burned to the ground.
I think we really worked so hard to...
Even the three foster children they'd begun to raise were taken away, placed with another family until Alan and Kirsten could get proper housing.
We know that the doctor really cares for him. They never even we have to find a little house that's secure with a man. We got a dog home, my weekend, so we're really hungry.
Alan believed the fire was a way of trying to drive them out of their town for good.
At the house right now?
That's it. Like a word line.
I've already looked at it. I didn't think about it. It's all gone.
I'm Detective Garcia, Miami-Dade Police Department. I am looking for a voyeur.
I'm sorry?
Voyeur. Voyeur?
Voyeur.
Oh, the French guy.
Yes.
319 down that way, second floor.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. That's one. One. Okay? Look, I got this, okay? I'm going to pick up this guy. I'm going to take him down to the station house. I am going to interrogate him.
I want to help before somebody gets it, okay? I can't do nothing. Just get easy. What I'm doing.
You know what you're doing here? You're being a tourist. Okay? Say hello to the girl. Go ahead.
It was a beautiful day. You could feel the heat from the volcano.
The description was a nice, easy hike. They didn't make it sound dangerous.
I knew what could happen out there, but you don't believe it will happen.
Right.
It was a beautiful day. You could feel the heat from the volcano. You could feel the ground was warm. And I get these beautiful yellow colours, dark lines as well. I mean, there's colours everywhere. Steam popping up out of the ground. It was an absolutely breathtaking sight.
It looked like Mars or something. There was a lot more steam than I thought there would be.
You knew there was something beautiful and terrible. You wanted to see it. But our tour guides just said, do not go near the edge of the crater.
I was getting really anxious. I talked to our tour guide and I asked him, what do we do if there is an eruption? Because I'm getting a little nervous here.
I love my wife more than anything, but being anxious is not an unusual situation for herself. I did just brush it off for the most part. But you just said the words, it's not going to erupt.
As a young Kiwi, what better place to grow up? You got the hills, and the hunting and the fishing. And the ocean to swim in. Nothing better. Whakatane is a beautiful community, full of adventure.
Geographically, we are on the east coast of the North Island. Auckland's here, and then down the coast is Whakatane. People would pronounce it Wakatane or Whakatane or Wakatane or whatever. But it's a small community that has a lot of love at the heart of it.
There's 38,000 people in Whakatane. We have 51% non-Māori, and 48% Māori. Our communities support one another. And together, we have a beautiful area which includes the living, active, breathing volcano, Whakaari, the English name, White Island.
White Island is about 48 kilometres off the coast of Whakatane. When you're driving down the coast, you look out across the horizon and you see the large plumes of white smoke coming out of the crater. Absolutely amazing. It's just the raw beauty of nature.
In our folklore, we come from the mountains. We actually are descendants of Whakaari, and we are the protectors of the island itself. She is an awesome energy and power unto her own right. But she's also very special in terms of tourism.
People love White Island, and so many people are connected to White Island tours here. Our restaurants, our motels, everything, our shops, our boutiques, all of those rely on people that adventure tourism brought to our town.
Our wedding was the most perfect, magical day ever. I don't think I ever smiled that much in my entire life.
I'm an adventure seeker. She is absolutely not an adventure seeker.
I'm more of like a laying out type of girl, or just relaxing at a beach or something like that.
So for our honeymoon, we started looking at cruises. We found this one for New Zealand, and we looked at it. Oh, this is great. New Zealand has all this amazing geography and attractions. This seems perfect.
My sister and I, we really like anything that's going to give us a lot of adrenaline and I suppose put us at some kind of enjoyable risk. So we jumped off the Auckland Tower. We went black water rafting. My mum and dad previously been on a few cruises and they really enjoyed it and they brought it to us, my sister and I. The idea of going on a cruise to New Zealand, and on that cruise we're given the options of excursions onto the mainland.
I would pick out an excursion one day, and Matt would pick out an excursion for a different day. So December 9th was actually Matt's day to pick out an excursion.
I'm into everything science, and it sounded really interesting, like an actual volcano that you can walk up to and look into.
White Island was something different that you wouldn't normally be able to do, being one of the world's most active volcanoes.
I mean, from the description, it was a nice, easy hike. It's not like you need rock climbing gear and everything else to get up there, is that just walk up to the crater and look in and see this amazing volcano. They made it sound exciting, they didn't make it sound dangerous.
I was like, okay, that looks good. I mean, we looked at the description, I was like, okay.
We live in Hamilton, in New Zealand, and I'm a full-time pastor at a church. My daughter, she'd been studying through school geology, volcanic activity, and I said to her, we should go while we have the opportunity to go. And then for my 50th birthday, she surprised me with tickets to go out to Whakaari. Monday morning, it's quiet, there's not a lot of traffic around. We arrived at the tour office and we read through a couple of safety documents and then asked to sign just our contact details and next of kin details. I know there's a risk and I'm there with my daughter, I'm not going to put her in danger, but at no point did I ever fear what we were actually doing. That day, there were a few boats that toured the island, and we were in the Phoenix. We left the wharf and travelled out on the river for 5 or 10 minutes. You cross the river bar, heading out into the open ocean, and then from there onto White Island.
We departed from the main cruise ship around 9 AM. We took an hour-long bus ride to Whakatane, to the port where we were taking off from, with 40 or so other tourists.
We all got onto the Tapoya, and the tour guide said it was a brand new ship. I think they'd just gotten it that year.
There were 4 guides on the Tapoya. They were locals to Whakatane, and they were very excited to tell us about the history of White Island.
The morning of December 9th, it was Hayden, Tiffany, Jake and myself as guides. We prepped the boat and then we just left like every other day.
Once the shuttle will take you on a fully guided tour of the crater here. It doesn't take approximately an hour to an hour and a half.
My younger brother Hayden loved the outdoors and he had a passion for summer. Around 2009, he started as a tour guide, guiding in Whakaari. Hayden kept a detailed diary of every trip that he went to the island, and he did 1,111 trips.
That's amazing. I did not know that was Hayden's 1,111 trip to the island. No.
Hayden's probably one of the longest standing guides. He helped train me at work, and then after work we'd go to the local fishing club, or we'd take trips up to the Tarawera Falls. He was always up for an adventure.
He developed a huge passion for the whole environment, not just Whakaari and not just the volcano.
The gusts were blowing, the swell was quite large. A lot of the poor passengers actually were being moved to the back of the Tapoya because they were feeling quite seasick. I was sitting with my family, we were kind of not making fun of them but laughing a little bit, smoking to ourselves. We quite enjoyed being on the water, and we were enjoying the bumpy ride.
We had no idea how rough the seas were going to be. We were on that boat for probably 90 minutes, and I would say at least 7 or 8 people were vomiting just because the entire ship would pitch up and then would pitch back down. And you would see ocean and sky, then ocean and sky, and ocean and sky.
That was so close to throwing up. I mean, I was literally like holding my stomach like this.
It's an hour and a half out there and an hour and a half back. Some days you can go out there and it can be rough, it can be horrible. If you're not used to being on a boat for an hour, your sea legs go pretty quickly. Hence there's another option as well. You can take a helicopter, and that was only a 20-minute flight.
Waking up that day for me was a little bit nervous, a little bit of stress. This is my first day where I was allowed to fly passengers solo. I went to New Zealand initially for my license. Just looking for a good place to learn to fly. On a clear day, if you're taking off from the mainland, you'd be able to see White Island. You can fly in a straight line for it. And the conditions that day, they were perfect conditions.
As the Phoenix got real close to the island, the crew are starting to prepare us for getting off. And my daughter said, "Let's go, Dad, I want to be first on the island." The tour started and we just slowly walked. The two tour guides, one of them would go first and one of them would go last, and as a group we would stay between them.
It's kind of like a scene at Jurassic Park when you approach it. Landing on White Island, the first time for me was like landing on the moon kind of. It's just a surreal kind of environment. So after we landed, did the safety briefing, kind of start walking towards the crater.
Most of the volcano is underwater, so you're only seeing the top of it. White Island is a stratovolcano. When it erupts, it doesn't tend to have lava flows like Hawaiian volcanoes. It tends to sort of put down layers of rocks and ash and build itself up that way.
When the Tatoya arrived at the island, we had to get in these small, they call them Zodiac boats. They're just inflatable rubber boats. It's just a really quick trip to the island.
Yeah, about a minute or two.
And they arrived at this very rickety cement jetty with a rusted metal ladder on it.
You had the sounds of the waves crashing onto the beach, washing up onto the shore, which gave that sea breeze, that smell of the salt. And then you also had, it was almost like a strong malodorous smell of sulfur. And it looked quite barren, no signs of life.
When we walked off that jetty and got our first real glimpse, I had a picture in my head of what a volcano would look like, and this was not it. No lava, just lots and lots of steam.
It was very beautiful, but I felt like we were very much in the middle of nowhere.
From there we created separate groups. My guides on the island were Hayden and Tiffany. Tiffany was, I believe, to be learning. Hayden was showing him the ropes.
Tiffany was very inquisitive, always asking questions, you know. Proud to be a Māori. He was excited to have that job. He enjoyed going out on the boat, mixing with people. He loved telling them all sorts of stories, Māori myths and legends. He wasn't supposed to work that day. We were going to do some shopping, but he was called into work to fill in for someone, and he went to work.
These tour guides and pilots and skippers, they know the island so well, down to every last rock. They know Whakaari more than anybody else.
Alright everyone, welcome to White Island. I'll be your guide today for our little tour around the island.
They gave us a hard hat that had a chin strap on it, and then they gave us a respirator.
So what we're going to do, we're going to head around the side here, up to that main crater, stop at a few points of interest on the way, let you know some information about the island. So yeah, as long as everyone's all good, we'll start our tour, we'll get going.
The first group left pretty promptly after having a short safety break. We were still collecting our group together.
So what's this for?
So you're going to suck on them, and it's going to help produce saliva so that any irritation that you get from the steam itself, this is just going to help soothe it so you're not coughing so much.
The island track is about a singular loop that starts at the beach. Once you reach the crater, you turn around and make your way around the island, and then back to the mouth at the entrance.
You got quite a bit of gas and that tries to escape. Some that has to work its way up through more viscous, muddy substance. So you kind of get that bloop, bloop, those kind of noises going on.
So what's happening is the sulfur is coming up with the steam, it's crystallising, falling back down on top of itself, and then it forms a chimney-like structure like on a house. So we call it the sulfur chimney area.
The landscape, it's rock and ash and mud. But then strewn amongst these greys are sulfur deposits that are the most beautiful bright yellow and bright white crystals that seem to sparkle in the sunlight. You actually get the feeling of the vastness and the power of what you're encroaching on. This glimmer of, Mother Nature at her most beautiful, but at her most deadly. Our guide said that the lake is normally a beautiful bluey green, and that day it was white because perhaps overnight there'd been some kind of activity that had caused ash to fall back down on the lake. I think it happens quite often, and for me the guides were good with it, so I was good with it.
So we start walking up towards the crater. We stop to take some photos every couple yards or so. And I talked to our tour guide, and I asked him, I said, so when was the last eruption? Because I'm getting a little nervous here. He said there was one in 2013, one in 2016. And I'm like, well, it's the end of 2019 now. I'm getting really nervous.
Hayden mentioned the island was at a level 2 risk. He didn't describe what that means at the time, but he did say it's at a high risk of activity, which to me was worrying.
Level 1, level 2 didn't really mean a lot. Level 1, not much happening. Level 2 was heightened activity, and then level 3 was an eruption. So, there was a massive amount of scope between level 1 and level 3.
We made our way back down to where we had left off. We got back onto the Phoenix and were just getting ready to leave. We began to chat with one of the tour guides about how all the volcanic activity at White Island had been either overnight or when nobody had been there. So it was almost like it was being kind to people to visit. It was like, I'll erupt when you're not there sort of thing. As we left the island and headed back, I then look back up towards the crater. I can see the tour from the other boat.
It was always pretty cool to get up to the crater and just hear everyone gasp and say wow and oh my god, this is amazing, and all start snapping photos. You get geologists coming out to see it and really kind of have a look at it. And then you get the other end of the scale, which would be like, oh, I just want a photo of the crater. I just want this for Instagram.
We got to the top of the crater, I would say probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're just looking down into this gaping, never-ending pit of steam. It's an intimidating sight. They gave us another opportunity where we could take pictures of us in front of the crater. I noticed another ship, the Phoenix, had just departed the island, and then we hung out up there for a few minutes and then started the journey back down.
I'm thinking, okay, we're on our way down. The tour is coming to an end, so I'm feeling a little bit better.
Because they were from a cruise ship, we were sort of on quite a tight time schedule, so we were moving pretty quick. We were on our way back to the jetty.
The other tour is probably 10 minutes behind us, and so we're leaving the crater, and Hayden is coming up towards the crater.
From the crater, we kind of loop back, and it's another 500 meters or so to the beach. I had 4 passengers that day, 2 couples, and at that stage, I slowly passed one of the boat groups that were walking towards the crater. I did recognize Hayden and said hi to Hayden, and while he made his way up towards the crater with his tour group.
We made our journey up to the acid lake. We could see the bubbling in between the clouds of steam that were wafting up into our faces. Hayden had told us that we could only stay there for maybe 2 to 3 minutes, just enough time to have a good look and take some photos, because the chemicals that were being released at the top there were a lot more harmful. Everyone was rushing to get a photo opportunity. It was time to move on. Single file. My sister was right up front with Hayden. I was with my parents towards the middle of the group.
About halfway down to the jetty, there were these 2 water streams, and they came from different parts of the island. So the tour guides actually had to stop and stick our fingers in the water and actually taste it. You could actually taste the different mineral content. I had just tasted the water, and I had my back to the crater, and I heard one of our other tourists say, "Hey, look at that." And you turn around and see this little black cloud coming out of the volcano. It didn't look intimidating. I actually took a picture of it. It was just like a chimney smoke coming up, no sound.
We all turned around to see what almost looked like a black firework, kind of like a Dementor from Harry Potter with a black long tail. So we all whipped out our phones, started taking photos. Shortly following, there was another larger bang, followed by a massive, even larger group of rocks flying into the air. And then slowly that began to increase in intensity and size.
I knew instantly, this is bad news. This is bad news. We need to run.
I turned around and saw the plume. It was already taller than my island. I knew immediately what was going on. My brain was in overdrive and just trying to go as fast as I could to try and work out what to do.
Now behind me, I hear Kelsey just yell, "Run!" And then it was on.
Go, 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 go.
At that point, I'm frantic. I'm living my worst nightmare.
We hear Hayden up front yelling to run, at which point panic set in and we all just started running for our lives. I had my parents right on my heels. You feel the shadow of the explosion rise up behind us.
We managed to run and take shelter behind a very large outcropping of rocks just before the ash cloud overtook us.
It was just a black void. All you could hear was just the sound of rumbling and just the roaring. At that point, there was nothing I could do.
We were going to the next bay, which was just around the cliff, and that's when it erupted.
Oh no!
I'm watching it go up, and it's beautiful. The white is pure white, the black is dark. It kind of is just an awesome moment. Within seconds, what was beautiful went eerily sinister. This ash cloud started rolling down over the cliff. The crew are realizing what's happened. The boat has started to speed up significantly. We're still outside. The crew are calling everybody into the cabin.
We were walking towards the coast, and one of my passengers asked me, should we run? And I looked over my shoulder and I saw this massive eruption going on. I remember looking up over my left shoulder and seeing these kind of projectiles starting arcing towards us as well. To me, it looked like it was going up thousands of feet, it just wasn't ending. I looked over at the helicopter, which would have been about 300 to 400 meters away from me, so that's not an option whatsoever. Option 2 was go for some water. So I told them to run for the water. Once I got to the pier, I just sprinted and jumped in. And then hitting the water and just holding my breath as long as I could. Everything just went black.
Remember rocks hitting me and melting my hard hat. It was the darkest thing I've ever seen in my life. Darker than any night I've ever experienced. Just pitch black.
If you read any literature on paraplastic flows, people don't walk out. I knew the odds of getting out of the back of it, so yeah, we just had to take shelter and cross our fingers, really. I held my sunglasses and my gas mask to my face and just didn't let go.
I hear other people yelling. It's just horrific.
I vividly remember feeling like my back was being burned off. My arms and legs were burned so badly, so quickly, I never even felt them.
I heard Matt say, "I'm sorry, Lauren," and that broke my heart. I hold on to his hand because I thought for sure we're gonna die today. And I just want our bodies to be found together.
The smell was overwhelming. The heat alone was just unbearable. The superheated steam just burned me alive. I did my absolute best not to breathe at all, to keep my mouth shut, to keep my eyes closed. I tried moving into the fetal position, just let my back take the brunt of the force.
Around the water, there's no noise, and you're just waiting for kind of, some light to reappear. And it feels like you just don't know when it's going to end. Because there's just no light, there's nothing. At one point there was a bit of light, I remember looking at it, and I thought, thank God for that. Started swimming towards it, but then it disappeared again.
I tell Matt I love him. I yell it every 2 seconds. I love you, I love you, I love you. And all I can hear is him screaming in pain. I've never heard him yell like that, ever. The pain was just excruciating. The burns went through all my clothes.
2 to 3 minutes was the entire Russian event. It was the most terrifying 2 minutes of my life by far. I thought, this is it. This is my last day on this planet. We're going to die on our honeymoon.
I remember looking out of that window and I now can't see the island at all. It's gone.
Time for me felt like it was going slower, and I always said if anything ever would happen to me, I feel like I've lived, from my age, a very good full life. I'm satisfied to where I got. But at that time, I realized, nope, I'm not ready to let this go just yet. I think I'm just gonna keep on trying my best to get out of this situation alive. The ash started to settle on the surface of the water, light started to reappear, and that's when I came back up. I looked behind me towards the island. You could see that there was still a fine amount of ash still in the air, kind of falling down onto the island.
First thing I did was yell out Lauren's name. I was in such bad shape, I was afraid she had died. So I just remember being so scared. So eventually, when I saw her moving, I think she said, I'm here, I'm here. That was the biggest relief I've ever felt in my life when she responded. That was my worst nightmare, would be if I survived and she didn't. That would be worse than anything else. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself.
Once the eruption ceased, I suppose out of shock, I just stood up and I walked a few meters over. We were a small distance away from the acid lake. There were screaming and shouting, crying. I could see some people rolling around on the ground, struggling in severe pain, which was a horrible sight to see.
Just gradually it just got less, and then it just stopped and it was still and it was quiet, and so I thought, well, it's now or never. So got up and started yelling at everyone to follow me and get up, and then started heading back to the jetty.
For me personally, physically I was perfectly fine. But everybody was on the island during the eruption. None of them were okay. Nobody managed to escape that steam. That steam, we're talking about 200 degrees Celsius. So that's, you come out looking like a boiled chicken, pretty much, to put it in a rough way.
I just looked down my arm and there's like an entire layer of skin just flopping off. I mean, I knew I was in bad shape and I knew she was in bad shape. The only thing on my mind was, we are getting off this island now.
I was really struggling to walk. I fell a couple of times. Matt was burnt a lot worse than I was because he was wearing a lot less clothes than I was. But he was helping me.
I was running pure adrenaline. I knew roughly where the jetty was, and that was where I was going.
At that point, I could see one of the groups walking towards the pier, and they all started collecting at the pier. 20 people or so, waiting to be helped.
I didn't know we were going to do this, but the skipper took the boat back to where we'd just come from. And as we headed back there, we went into the shadow of the ash clouds, so it went dark.
I heard a call come through VHF, the skipper that I knew, sounding very distressed. There's people on the island and she's erupting. And you could hear the distress in his voice that this was serious. Instantly my phones just started ringing. I then ran across the car park out to the river where you could see White Island. Sure enough, there was a big cloud above the island and it wasn't stopping. It was only about 5 minutes later he's asking again where their help was. They emphasised the distress that they must have been under, calling for help. And just a couple minutes later they asked, where is that help?
Someone came into office just after 2 and told us that Fukati was erupting. We don't have a direct line of sight to Fukati, but over the hills we could see a fairly impressive cloud. Another staff member said, oh, well, there's the cameras, let's go check the cameras. And we saw what were basically small black dots, but we knew that those were people, and that's when, for us then, it registered that there were people on there.
We were working, we had a deadline, we started hearing the sirens, and we're like, what's going on? I drove down to the Mount Tatua Reserve, pulled up, ran across that big grassy patch. We knew something was wrong. The plume was bigger than usual. People were just staring at Fukati erupting, basically.
I was at home and I saw the breaking news. People were starting to arrive at my house, and geez, I was still trying to think myself and get it, just wondering.
I was actually at a Māori funeral, and I could feel through the energy of my speaking there that something wasn't right. When I went to look, I could see the smoke coming up, and it wasn't a normal volcanic cloud. above Picard. It was very dark and dense. When I realised it was real, I actually just broke down and cried.
There was a bit of confusion initially in terms of who the tourists were that went on the island and actually who had taken them there. But we were certain that there were people left on the island at the time of the eruption.
We put the call out for how the Pakistani Coast Guard and they're steamed out towards White Island. There's an hour and a half trip by sea. It was frustrating because we had to, our boats to get that far, it's always going to be a little bit of wait. And then from Auckland, rescue helicopters also headed out to White Island.
They were air ambulance helicopters, Westpac rescue helicopters. The search and rescue experts with all the equipment and resources necessary, but they were also probably an hour out from the island.
When we first got back to the bay, you can see everything is just covered in this grey ash. Your brain just can't process what you're seeing. One thing that caught my attention was this helicopter.
Oh shit, look at that helicopter.
And I can very clearly see that it has now been pushed backwards. It's now half off the deck and the rotors are bent. That was the first time that I really started to think about the forces of what actually happened during that eruption. I remembered that. I took 3 or 4 photographs a few minutes after we left the jetty. If you look real closely, you can see just these little dots of people right up on the crater.
My group was still near to the crater. We were approximately 100 to 150 meters away from the point of the eruption. To my left I could see my parents. My father was sitting up, struggling with his gas mask. I couldn't see my sister at the time. I could see my mother just lying there, not really moving or communicating in any way.
The island is continuing to blow out steam from the crater lake, and we can see people at the jetty.
I see resource team.
Oh god, they're just covered in ash. Oh my god.
As soon as we'd seen how bad the eruption was, it kind of changed our purpose. This is now about needing to help people.
At that point, I had to make a decision. Do I swim for the boat and make sure I'm safe, or do I go back and try and help? This is a time where you're tested and do the best you can. I swam back over to the pier and started helping people into the rowboats.
Everybody's in a frantic race to get onto that Zodiac boat. We didn't know if that was a pre-eruption before the main event, so it was just pandemonium on that jetty. We needed to get off this island. We tried to get onto the first boat, which actually stopped at the jetty, but people pushed ahead of us, we couldn't get on it. So then on the next one, I grabbed the ladder to go on, but I kind of just flopped into the boat.
But at that stage, it was quite a bit of chaos. People are trying to jump in, and you kind of pull them back, push them back a bit. I remember grabbing their hands, helping them into the boat. Their skin would just come off from your hands. So it was really like a kind of war movie situation.
The inflatable came back to the Phoenix. One of the guys got out 3 or 4 first aid kits, and I can see that she's distressed, and I was quite close to her, and I said to her, both my daughter and I were first aid trained, can we help? Her response was, we need all the help we can get. So I picked up that first aid kit and walked to the back of the boat. Those first survivors were coming onto the boat, and we set up a triage. We're sitting them down. We're just trying to alleviate the pain of a burn with cool water. They were just screaming, get me out of here, get me away from here.
They were burned from 45% to 80%, or even like fully burned. So survival rates after 45%, they go down significantly as well. So you know you're dealing with people who are going to die within the next hour or so, making their way back to shore. So it's quite a dire situation. And at that stage, the boat was at full capacity, so we had to get back to shore as fast as we could.
I got a call from my wife, and she said there's a massive amount of smoke coming off the car. Is everything alright? And I said, well, I think so. I said, I haven't heard anything, but I believe they can let us know. And I looked through the gap out to the ocean there, and man, there was a big plume of smoke had come up.
I was driving along the coast, and that's when I noticed a really, really big plume, bigger than normal, and definitely darker than. I was looking at it, going, what's something happening?
Volcanic here had a message that there'd been an eruption. I'd actually been able to view on one of the volcano cameras located at the coast of Whakatane. I think it became pretty apparent that, sitting back and doing nothing wasn't an option. We knew that there were people on the island. We had the means and the ability to try and help, and it's just the right thing to do, and that's what we did.
Like all things, when it comes down to making decisions and things happening, you either do or you don't. So I do. I called Tim and I said, I'm going. And he said, yeah, I'll see you up there. I called 2 really experienced people that work for me. I said, get a machine out, ready to go, fuel it up, grab some gear that you think we might need, grab some meat from us and some water. And then they took off. A few minutes later, I lifted. Could
hear the chit-chat going on the radio. And that's when I heard John Fennell's voice.
I was actually doing some flying at Wakatani in my aeroplane, just testing out some new equipment. That's when I heard Mark Law on the radio calling for a fixed wing.
We needed someone circling overhead who was like a relay station or a means of passing communication, because there is very limited cell phone coverage on White Island. There's no fixed radio or any radio system there.
I volunteered my help. I had plenty of fuel. I had the ability to get out there. And never gave it a thought about not going.
Victims were kind of laid around the boat, at the front and the back. We all kind of fell through on roles, assisting people. And everybody who was on that boat did help quite a bit.
So we're dealing with exposed hands, legs, faces, but the burns were far worse than that. I remember that being a key moment where I thought, what would burn you through an item of clothing but didn't burn the clothing? I realised actually that the steam caused injuries far worse that we couldn't see.
There wasn't room for us in the cabin. We actually ended up riding on the bow of the ship, getting splashed by salt water and the cold air and the sun. It was a horrific ride back.
I just keep looking up at the horizon thinking, how are we not there yet? Surely it's been hours. But yeah, I mean, you can hear the boat at just total capacity. And so yeah, I was like, keep going boat, keep going Phoenix.
The Phoenix, about 26 injured or critically injured people on board. That's when I thought, shit, there's a whole boatload of people that are still to be accounted for.
Up near the acid lake, I was just sitting there rocking in pain. Everything. My whole body was just tingling. I could see my arms covered in grey ash. I was just thinking, I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna die, that's gonna be it. I sat in the middle of about half a dozen or more people who are dead or dying. In that time, you hear the voices slowly start to dissipate. The screaming becoming less frequent, the crying becoming more quiet. I knew you got your highest likelihood of surviving any kind of trauma if you receive medical assistance within the first hour. After sitting there for half an hour, I came to the realisation that no one was coming. And then something just clicked. Just get up and go find some help. Standing up and walking away from my parents, that was, I would say, the toughest thing I've ever had to do. But once I I did find that strength, I was less so a walk, but more a stumble, forceful pushing myself just to keep on walking.
"53 minutes into the trip back, that's where people started kind of screaming out, you know, need water, need water.
We just did what we could with Matt and Lauren and these guys at the front. What was in my first aid kit was of far less value than the container. I tipped everything out of my first aid kit and started to fill it with water. We just start to pour cold water just over their hand, over what we can see that is exposed.
Everybody was screaming for relief in a certain way. I think we were all just doing what we could at that time. I was told a few times, you know, you need to sit down, probably inhaled a lot of ash and stuff. But it's very hard to sit down in a situation like that, you know, so you just keep going.
They wrapped me in a blanket to keep me warm. And then Jeff Hopkins even, you know, kept his body to keep me warm.
She tells me I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. Yes, you are. This isn't the end of your life. You have got many years ahead of you. She asked if I would just hold her hand, and I couldn't hold it because it was just so badly burned.
I'm not normally a religious person,